Hello viewers, Would-Be Ben here with the seasonal project. The light show behind me comes courtesy of a string of holiday lights marketed by Home Depot under the brand name App Lights. These App Light icicles can be programmed with your smartphone to display 140 different color patterns and animations, including a Christmas light show. They're fairly expensive at $70 a string. When I first bought them, I thought they would be a good investment because they're made out of LEDs and in theory should last forever. Boy, was I wrong. I've discovered that it's rare for these to make it through more than 1 or 2 seasons before they start to fail. Signs of impending failure may include some of the LEDs demonstrating the wrong colors, stuttering, or parts of the string not following the correct pattern. But ultimately, you end up with a partially dead string. Since these lights are not replaceable, you usually end up tossing out the string. Well, I've discovered a way to salvage a partially dead string of app lights so that they can make it through another season. Here's an example of a failing string. I've removed most of these icicles to make it easier to show all of the string, but the icicles can simply be removed by prying them off the bulb base like that. What we're seeing with this string, these are supposed to all be displaying fuchsia, but there are a few bulbs that are displaying red, and then a whole section of the string is flashing multicolor, while the end of the string is completely dark. These particular app lights are wired in series. There are 2 wires going into each bulb and then 2 wires coming out of each bulb. Let's see if we can fix this string by bypassing the bad bulbs. To bypass a bulb, you take the 2 inner wires and splice them together. And then you take 2 outer wires and splice them together. This will bypass the bad bulb. Let's see if we can first restore the last bulbs on this string. Because these bulbs are wired in series, we're seeing electrical activity in this bulb, but none after this bulb here. This suggests that this bulb may be bad. So let's bypass this one and see if we can restore these last 3. We're going to start by marking the bad bulb here so we know which one needs to be bypassed. And then we're going to disconnect the string from power. And we're going to take this bulb here. And we're going to isolate the wires here. Let's start with the outer wires on this particular bulb here. So we're going to clip off the outer wires here. And we're going to strip off about a 1/2 inch here. I'm going to twist these wires here. Because these are going to be used outdoors, I'm going to use some heat shrink adhesive lined butt connectors to make these connections. These red ones are rated for 18 to 22 gauge wire. These wires look to be about 20 gauge, but to make a better connection, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold each of these over to make the wire a little bit thicker. Just ensure that our butt connectors get a good amount of copper in them. So insert the wire in there, and we'll use our crimping tool to crimp that connection. And we'll do the other side here. Okay, now we're going to test this first, but before we finish, we're going to need to use a heat gun to shrink the shrink wrap over the ends of this and melt the adhesive. So now we'll do the inner two wires. I left these wires long enough that if it turns out that this bulb is okay, that I could splice this back on if I had to. Okay, so we have bypassed that last bulb that wasn't lighting up. Let's see what happens when we plug this back in. Well, we've got one more bulb that's come on now, but we still have the last two that are dead. So it looks like we're going to have to bypass this one too. We'll do the same thing. We'll bypass it by splicing it out. Well, I bypassed the second to last bulb that wasn't lighting up, but the very last bulb is not lighting up. This bulb, instead of having 4 wires, only has 3. So this last wire goes all the way back to the controller. So I think I'm just going to leave this alone for right now. Let's take a look at where this starts to malfunction here. Let's see if we can bypass this bulb and restore the pattern. Well, I swapped out the first bulb that was flashing and it didn't fix the problem. So let's try swapping out the last good bulb in case the signal coming out of this is wrong. Well, temporarily bypassing the last apparent good bulb here has restored all of them to the same pattern. Okay, so we have swapped out this for one of the bulbs that we had cut off the very end of the chain there that wasn't lighting up. And now we've actually got the pattern restored all the way through. One thing to be aware of is on each of these pairs here, these diodes are polarized. There's a plus and a minus side on them. So you want to temporarily connect these wires to make sure you have them the right way. So this inner pair, if you connect them up and it doesn't work, flip it over and reverse the connections to see if that'll work. And you've got one pair of wires coming from the power source and then a pair going to the rest of the string. So you need to keep track of those wires to keep them paired together. If I finish up these connections here, we'll have taken a string that was pretty much unusable to one that's a little bit shorter, but actually works in a consistent pattern. Okay, we now have what is essentially a usable but shorter string of lights. We ended up having to replace this bulb, which was the last one in the correct pattern before the pattern changed. We took one of the bulbs from the end of the string that was presumably a good bulb and spliced it in here. This was the first bulb that was of the wrong pattern, but it turned out that it was actually okay, so it got spliced right back where it was. We've got the pattern completely reestablished throughout the chain. We did bypass this bulb here, which is the first before the completely dead string. So, but the very end of the chain here, the bulb that only has 3 wires on it, this one remains out. This LED that was at the end of the chain with only 3 wires ended up being a bad LED too. So I basically cut across all 3 wires and then tied all 3 of them together, and that allowed the string to continue to function. Here's the splice where the last LED used to be. So these are the 2 center conductors, and this was the 1 outside conductor here, but they're all tied together. The last step of our repair is to use our heat gun to seal all of our butt connectors. Well, here's our repaired string. Some of the LEDs still are missing some of the colors, but the patterns seem to be working and the string seems to be usable. Not perfect, but good enough for one more season. Well, it looks like we're going to get another season out of these App-Lite icicles. Well, I hope you found this project helpful or useful. If you did, hit like and subscribe. Until next time, bye-bye.